after more than 2 decades of silence about his time with Diddy, Ice Cube is now finally speaking out against Diddy. Ice Cube has just testified about what he saw during his time with Diddy and how he witnessed Diddy grooming minors. Not only that, but Kanye West has also shown up at the Diddy trial supporting Diddy. A leaked call between Kanye and Diddy is going viral, as one of the jurors was just dismissed after it was found that Diddy's lawyers were allegedly controlling him.
Shut out. You know, some platforms will not have me on.
Why?
They don't like that I'm, an independent thinker. I'm not part of the herd. I'm not part of the go along to get along gang, so to speak. So, I'm an outsider. And so, I'm not part of the club.
Almost 40 years rocking the mic. You still killing it, goddamn. And I'm gonna tell you right now, me and Dub C ain't never been to a Diddy party, motherfucker. No.
Thank God.
You ain't gotta worry about us on them motherfucking tapes. Now check this shit out.
Gotta sing to that part.
Week 4 of the Diddy trial is underway, and Ice Cube has reportedly testified about what he saw in Diddy's mansion back in 1994. Ice Cube collaborated with Diddy on his War and Peace album, and during production, Diddy invited him to his house. Here, Ice Cube saw the same drugs, guns, and escorts that the FBI is now entering into evidence. 1,000 bottles of baby oil line the walls of Diddy's mansion, along with lube, drugs, and even whips. Diddy would beat the women at his house in front of his guests. He thought that Ice Cube would stay silent like everyone else and help him cover up his crimes, but Ice Cube distanced himself and stepped away.
You're hearing Diddy everywhere, okay?
Yeah.
So, did you ever have any kind of run-in with Diddy? Did you ever do anything with Diddy? Any projects you worked on with him?
He produced a few records, or had his producers do a few records on my War and Peace album, the Peace Disc. Yeah.
How was he to work with?
It was cool. He gave us great music. We flew out to New York, and I was mainly in the studio with the producer. He had a stable of producers, so I was in the studio with his stable of producers, and I think we did some great music. And I really kind of lost contact with him and really stopped, dealing with Puffy around 94.
Yeah. Any specific reason?
Yeah, they was doing their thing, I was doing mine. And, I'm not the partying type. You know what I mean? I ain't never been to a Diddy party. I ain't never really wanted to go. But I don't go to a lot of people parties.
Ice Cube's testimony included detailed reports, names, locations, and dates. Ice Cube told the jurors everything he saw in that horrifying mansion and how Diddy was abusing women. Diddy expected Ice Cube to stay silent and help him cover up his crimes like everyone else in the industry. Diddy's lawyers objected, saying Cube's statements were prejudicial and based on hearsay, but the judge overruled them, noting that Cube had first-hand knowledge and was under oath. The courtroom fell silent as Cube described the hidden room surveillance footage and threats used by Diddy and his associates to organize the freak-offs. Cube went on to reveal how powerful figures in the music industry tried to silence him. They warned me, he said, told me I'd never work again, but I couldn't unsee what I saw. Even now, Ice Cube has been blackballed by these elites.
Homeboy Ice Cube. And some of you may not have realized that I'm not part of the club. And a lot of you listening to me right here, right now, you're not part of the club either. And what I realized with the club is what makes them so mad is when you don't want to be a part of their fucking club. That pisses them off. What club am I talking about? I'm talking about the club of gatekeepers that we all got to deal with. You know who they are, and they definitely know who they are.
A lot of people would be like, what? Who? Come on, man. Stop playing. So ever since I put out the contract with Black America, you know they've been fucking with me. Here and there, this and that. But it's cool, you know. I expect that.
From again.
What platforms have banned you?
I've been you know, I tried to go on The View. They didn't have me on The View.
Why?
Well, a few of the guests just really didn't like where I was coming from. So, or a few of the hosts, I mean. So that's what I was told by the producers. You know, I don't know if the producers was just copping out and using some of the hosts to not have me come on and explain myself, but
you'd be a good booking for them.
I've been on there before.
Yeah.
You know, it's just when I've became an independent thinker, when I've, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't follow their brand of politics, I guess.
But if you can't think for yourself, then you're not really free, are you?
No, you're not. You're not. But I've been excluded. I've been excluded on Oprah, you know.
On Oprah?
On Oprah, yeah, I've been excluded. Yeah, man.
I would think you'd be the person Oprah would want to promote. I mean, you grew up in South Central, you were successful at a young age, you have
What is happening to Diddy now has been in the works for a long time. Diddy isn't the ringleader, and once the elites at the top, the gatekeepers, realized that Diddy wasn't useful for them anymore, they got rid of him. Hollywood is a disgusting place that produces only victims and abusers. Clive Davis turned Diddy into the monster he is today.
Into a mama.
Are you surprised at what things are coming out with Diddy at all, or you're like, you have no idea? It's none of my business. You'll live long. Is that kind of like the mindset?
I mean, surprised. How could you be surprised with anything that happens in hip hop? You know, hip hop is the Wild West. So you're gonna have the good, you're gonna have the bad, you're gonna have the ugly.
You think he's being targeted, or some of the stuff he's got, you know, there's credibility on what they're coming after him with the tapes and the feds and raiding his Miami home, his LA home?
I believe he's being targeted.
You believe he's being targeted?
Yeah. I believe, you know, somebody, you know, has the power to pull the trigger to make, you know, this stuff, this domino effect happen.
Okay. All right. So you think he's being targeted. So you don't think, you know, Suge said, you can say what you want about Diddy, but Diddy didn't learn to like young boys. He learned it from a man named Clive Davis. He threw Clive Davis in there. It doesn't sound like you're part of that camp. You're part of the camp that you think he's being targeted.
You know, I don't know enough to even be able to be specific on any of this stuff. It's just all speculation. I just know he was cool up until a point, and then this stuff started happening. So I believe somebody, you know, like I said, yo, he's our new guy we on this year.
As we peel back the layers of what Ice Cube revealed in Core, we see that Hollywood is filled with predators. Sexual abuse is rampant in the film industry, and some of the biggest names like Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, Roman Polanski, and now Diddy were all sexual predators who used young men and forced them into degrading acts. These people are part of the gay mafia that controls Hollywood and the music industry record. Company executives and directors were all involved in the sex trafficking. Ring with Diddy.
To try and deal with life, you are literally, it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far. You know, who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what he had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head. You know, but when you lose your man card, that's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
Now, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up that man card right, you lose some spiritual energy that has always been pushing through. Like if a woman gives up her womanly right of being a mother and taking care of her family and do all those things, when you give up those things, but when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You should have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone.
Allegedly, Diddy is manipulating the case. Even now, juror number 6 was just dismissed by the judge after it was noted that he had been lying. Diddy's lawyers fought to keep this juror in the case and said that he was extremely important to the trial. How did Diddy manage to get someone like juror number 6 on the panel in the first place? That's the question shaking everyone from the courtroom to the public, according to sources close to the case. Juror 6 had undisclosed ties to Bad Boy Records through a distant family connection, something he failed to mention during jury selection.
Multiple inconsistent statements. The judge was going over his issues with juror number 6, and although he did not make a final determination, his thoughts on juror number 6 being removed were pretty clear. He stated that in the initial process, juror number 6 said that he lived in the Bronx with his fiance and his daughter. Then he turned around a while later and said that he moved to New Jersey with his girlfriend and also said that his daughter lived in New Jersey. But then it changed again and said that his daughter lived in the Bronx with his aunt. And he referenced that this was only a couple of the inconsistent statements, that there were more. The judge then stated that he wants this juror off the jury because there is no reason why this man would have to lie, and the only reason he would lie is to be a part of the Diddy trial, which made him worry that this juror might have a malicious intent or an agenda. But then after the judge said that we need to strike this juror off of the jury, Diddy's team started bringing up more arguments about this. Diddy's lawyer said that this juror is important because they need diversity, and he is only one of 4 black men that sit on the jury. He also said that he doesn't believe that these inconsistencies were that big of a deal where this juror would have to be removed. Diddy's team was arguing that this is something that should have been brought up weeks ago, and nobody brought this up, and the government is saying, listen, I didn't even know about this back then. And then Diddy's lawyer said something really, really weird. They said, just bring this juror in, just question him. I'm sure it's nothing. I'm sure he'll be able to explain. But this is what the government wanted the judge to do earlier, and Diddy's lawyer said, no, that would be harassing the juror. Then the judge told
Diddy was best friends with Mayor Adams, and both of them were exposed at the same time. Diddy's relation to political elites is how he was able to escape arrest for so long. Even now, some of the biggest names in the industry are still supporting him. Kanye West just showed up at the trial to show his support for Diddy. Clip 8. Diddy's victims and the abuse he carried out has destroyed hundreds of lives. Young artists were groomed and manipulated by Diddy and forced to live a life of shame. This is allegedly why Justin Bieber and Aaron Carter turned to drugs. They want to drown out those memories and get the abuse out of their heads.
Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, has made a surprise appearance at Sean Diddy Combs' criminal trial on Friday. He expressed support for his fellow rapper as he defends against sex trafficking charges.
Breaking news tonight, and for the first time in the history of New York City, a sitting mayor has been indicted for crimes. ABC News reporting that Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury. We do not know yet the exact charges. Federal authorities have been investigating Adams and members of his staff, issuing subpoenas for documents and cell phones. Several members of administration have resigned, some of them also friends of Mayor Adams. Again, Eric Adams, the 110th mayor of New York, has been indicted by a federal grand jury. We'll have the latest online and tonight on Eyewitness News at 11.
Diddy always been the type of individual that wanted to have ups on the next person no matter what they was doing. He did the stuff to Ja Rule
so he could go after Jay-Z. They not gonna come out and speak on nothing that has anything to do with them, and they praying that they not on the tape doing crazy stuff, being oiled up in the whole 9 yards. Until the Fed say, hey, yo, listen here. Hey, buddy, we got you on this tape, and girl, look.
Prosecutors have presented the drugs that Diddy was using at this trial. Jurors were shown pictures from Diddy's hotel room along with $9,000 in cash, which Diddy allegedly planned to give to escorts even after the raid on his Miami mansion, where prosecutors found over 1,000 bottles of baby oil. Diddy was still engaging in freak-offs, MDMA, ecstasy, coke, and even guns were found at his hotel. Evidence of Diddy's involvement in the disappearance and trafficking of victims is clear as day.
With that, you see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head. The things that they did, no matter how they did it, whether they were drunk or high or whatever, you gave up your man card. You need therapy. And that's the thing that hurts them the most. And so they end up on drugs, end up every way to try and get rid of any principles there are. And that's what the business does. And the women that trade their bodies to go and get the role, they get to the point where they have their Oscar, they have their money, but they don't have their dream. They don't have the soul that they started with. So it's like achieving don't mean anything. If I get all the Nobel Prizes from doing all of this, but in the process I have to trade out all of my integrity to do it so that they can stay in place, what benefit is that if I lose my integrity? You got to go in as a principal. And what we were brought in here as men. We produce 1,500 sperm per heartbeat for a reason, because the aggression is necessary. You don't trade that.
At the heart of this trial is a woman known only as Jane, a former girlfriend of Combs, whose identity remains sealed for her protection. Her testimony has been nothing short of harrowing, a raw, emotional account of life behind the guarded gates of Diddy's empire. Jane pulled back the curtain on a world the public was never supposed to see. She testified about years of psychological manipulation, violent outbursts, and sexual coercion, including one incident that left the courtroom in stunned silence.
The jury that Diddy forced her into drug-fueled sex acts with male escorts while he watched, sometimes sitting in the corner and masturbating. Through tears, she said she took drugs to numb herself, ecstasy, cocaine, and ketamine, all of it allegedly supplied by Diddy. She said the freak-offs included as many as 4 male escorts at once and typically lasted 36 to 72 hours. The longest, she said, the longest freak-off that she says she was forced to perform in lasted 4 days. She said they took place around the world, from New York to Miami to Spain to even Turks and Caicos. And at every stop, Cassie said the hotel rooms were stocked by Diddy's staff with baby oil, condoms, and drugs. And she says that these hotel rooms, this is disgusting, the hotel rooms were left covered in baby oil and covered in blood and covered in urine. Cassie told the jury that the freak-offs made her feel disgusting and humiliated and worthless. But she said she couldn't say no, because she says Diddy threatened to release videos of the freak-offs with her in them.
Just before they broke for lunch, Cassie Ventura described how freak-offs actually became a job, lasting 36 to 48 hours, the longest one lasting up to 4 days. No wonder the participants needed IV fluids after a freak-off. I'm just curious, to Lauren Cullen joining us at the courthouse, how was the jury responding?
What I will say is Cassie made a point to say that when she wasn't making music, she was actually having to, quote, recover from these freak-offs. And again, she did say these freak-offs lasted between 1 and 4 days, and it would take her an equal amount of time to get her body recovered.
Jane's testimony didn't stop there. She recounted a separate incident, one that the courtroom hadn't seen coming. During a trip to Las Vegas, Jane says she was taken along with Diddy to meet another high-profile rapper and his girlfriend. What started as a glamorous weekend spiral into something far darker, though she didn't name names aloud. In court, sources close to the investigation believe the other rapper was none other than Kanye West. And now, with Kanye making multiple appearances at the courthouse right when Jane is testifying, speculation is reaching a boiling point.
Says that Diddy forced her to take drugs and that she would be awake for days, that she was taking ecstasy and Molly. And she said on these trips, she was sometimes so high on drugs that she lost her sense of self. Jane has finally taken the stand. Now, we're not allowed to reveal her identity because she's testifying under a pseudonym. She's talking about how she and Diddy first met, how they met in Miami and how he was so sweet and loving and that he was actually dating a friend of hers at the time, but that the two of them started going on trips to Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas. During her testimony, she's been crying, and it seems like it's been really hard for her to be up there on the stand. She is now talking about how Diddy would make her watch pornography while they were having sex with each other, and that he would talk to her about his fantasies. He would make her wear lingerie and what she calls stripper heels, and that at one point he told her that he wanted to see her have sex with other men. That's when he took her to a hotel room, and she starts describing how his assistants were in there setting things up with baby oil and the lighting and providing drinks. And she said that when she was there, he then hired an escort from a company called Cowboys for Angels. She said that this escort's name was Dawn and that she had sex with this man in front of Diddy while he masturbated. Jane testified that over the next few years, 90% of her relationship with Diddy centered around these sexual encounters with male escorts. She testified that she told Diddy multiple times, verbally and in writing, that she did not want to participate in these sexual encounters.
Third alleged victim, who goes by the pseudonym Jane, was back on the witness stand for her first full day of testimony. The prosecutor played an audio recording for the jury of a hotel night with a male prostitute Jane identified as Dawn. On the recording, Jane and Dawn are looking for a condom, but Combs didn't allow it and can be heard saying, quote, "You're taking that expletive." Now, Jane testified, quote, "I just didn't want to disappoint my lover. He would be unhappy and wouldn't be satisfied with me." Jane went on to tearfully tell the jury about her birthday in 2023 when she said she was made to have sex with 3 different men in addition to Combs. The prosecutor asked, "Why?" Jane responded, "I don't know. It had become so routine," and added that she turned robotic. Jane told the jury that after a while, Combs didn't have to directly ask her for these hotel nights. She testified, "I knew it was to be expected." Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges.
Cassie's testimony took the courtroom to even darker places. Her account painted a chilling picture of what really happened at Diddy's so-called freak-off parties, and it was far worse than anyone imagined. She spoke of minors being groomed and used for pleasure manipulation and sexual assault, all under the guise of elite industry gatherings. Cassie revealed how Diddy controlled every detail, and when things didn't go his way, he snapped, she described. Moments when he became violent, unpredictable, and terrifying.
Yo, bitch, it's wicked, wicked, wicked. So you be careful. Yeah. I can't do nothing. It's deep. You know what I'm saying? I need you out there, you feel me? Yeah. I hear you. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. Man, have some fucking fun. Yeah. Have no fun and then get behind the mic, have some fun, chop up them samples, get that more flip in, vibes, and have some fun, get that smiling. Yeah. These other motherfuckers, they waste your time, B.
One of the male sex workers at Diddy's freak-off parties, called The Punisher, has also testified in the trial. In his testimony, The Punisher described 8 to 12 encounters he allegedly had with Ms. Ventura while Combs watched and told him how to be intimate with Cassie. According to his testimony, Cassie would wheeze or sigh at Diddy's suggestions. There was no concern for her pain or emotional well-being. This wasn't about pleasure. It was about control. Every act, every instruction served one purpose: to satisfy Diddy's sick desire to dominate and degrade.
On here. But as she was describing these events where she said that, there were multiple male escorts that were happening at one time, these freak-offs would happen for 2, 3, the longest 4 days at a time. And control is the word we need to talk about. That is what prosecutors really laid out. And you heard Cassie describe how every action during these freak-offs, which were between her and male escorts, not necessarily between her and her boyfriend, man, Sean Diddy Combs, he sat off to the side, really directing things according to her and masturbating along with what he wanted to see. But he was in control, she said, really did not seem rehearsed in the slightest. It did seem like this is her story, and she didn't really want to be in a position where she had to tell it in this way, but was doing what needed to be done.
And just quickly, Caitlin, what was Diddy doing when he's sitting there? I'm just envisioning you've got his family sitting behind him with all these grotesque details, this woman on the stand. What was his reaction?
You know, first and foremost, he came into the courtroom and acknowledged his children. That is something he has done every single day. But during the actual testimony, when things got really dark, one of the mothers of one of his children had to get up and leave the courtroom. She couldn't sit through it. And you, Brian, have been in so many of these court cases the way I have. You know that the defendant is not supposed to react, but Diddy reacted. There were a few times where he was shaking his head no, kind of nodding along. There was a deep sigh at one point. But in two instances, one when they were talking about baby oil and the fact that it needed to be reapplied at sometimes 5-minute intervals because that's what he wanted to see. And then another instance when Kathy revealed the pseudonyms that he uses at hotels, that he actually pushed his chair all the way back from...
With Ice Cube breaking his silence, Jane, and Cassie exposing the horrors behind closed doors, and Kanye's suspicious appearances raising even more questions, we are witnessing the fall of a carefully crafted empire. And if even half of what's being revealed is true, then Diddy's arrest is just the beginning. Because once the dominoes start to fall, no one, not the artists, not the executives, not even the politicians, will be safe from the truth. Like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments.
The cum and rub it on Diddy's nipples. Was this happening in your sessions?
Well, so it is an assumption, right? So, you know, obviously with the veil, there was a very deliberate attempt to hide his identity.
Yeah.
So they never had any interactions or even any outward conversation in my presence. So there was a routine where sometimes we'll be right in the middle of sex and he'll just stand up and walk out of the room. And she would take that cue and she would follow him out. So I did recognize, and, you know, I mentioned it in my book, that it became a habit that we're having sex on couches with sheets. We started in towels. I would climax, but she would specifically leave the room without wiping herself, without doing anything to take care of the whatever I left on her. So I assumed that's when he popped up, because once I climbed up, he popped up, he left the room, she popped up, she followed him. So I'm assuming that's when the lathering, whatever went on, happened at that point.
Okay, so at what point did he stop wearing a veil?
It was shortly after. The way that I ended up finding out who he was and they were, because obviously in conjunction with each other, about the 5th time, we were in a hotel called the Essex House. And when I would arrive for the sessions, I would be waiting around a couple of hours. So in this specific time, they put me into an extra room in the hotel suite. And to kill time, I decided to watch TV. And this specific hotel had a welcome message, which was, so when I cut on the TV, it specifically said, Essex House would like to welcome